everybody, Stephanie here with the Machine Gun Nest with our newest legal update. So what has been going on is that we have received a leaked document from the ATF suggesting that they are going to offer amnesty for all of us with braced pistols to file them as SBRs. Your braced pistol is now going to become an NFA item. So if you don't own a braced pistol, you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't know what SBR is, NFA, I'd like to back up a little bit and share a story with you to the 1920s and the 1930s. And as our country was exiting an era of prohibition, gang violence was at an all-time high in many of our major cities: Chicago, New York, Baltimore, Detroit, the rise of the Chicago typewriter, Al Capone, Bonnie and Clyde. You get what I'm saying here. So Congress came together and said, what can we do to curtail some of this violence? And they introduced what was called the National Firearms Act, NFA. So the NFA categorized firearms essentially by their concealability. And at the time, they felt that a longer firearm or a rifle was more acceptable. That was okay, but anything that was concealable, like a handgun or what they called an SBR, a short-barreled rifle, was inherently more dangerous. And so handguns and SBRs, SBSs, short-barreled shotguns, and AOWs, which was any other weapon, were all kind of clumped together. Now, as the legislators put this on the floor, it was changed, and that's something we see now. The idea that comes to fruition often isn't what was originally imposed. So the handguns, of course, were removed. Everybody on the floor of Congress said, we cannot outlaw handguns or make this too burdensome for people to procure, but SBRs stuck. So they declared that short-barreled rifles were inherently more dangerous and therefore needed a $200 tax stamp to purchase. Now, back in the 1930s, think about this, $200 is equivalent to like $5,000. So for anybody who's purchased an NFA item now, I mean, $200 is pretty burdensome now. So imagine back then, I mean, they weren't even trying to hide that this was meant to be a massive obstruction to owning something that you are constitutionally entitled to own. Let's fast forward to now. So the Form 1 is the form used to create, manufacture a firearm and to register that with the ATF. Now, if you were to purchase a short-barreled rifle right now, it would require fingerprints, it requires photos, it requires that $200 tax stamp. But now they're saying your braced pistol is actually an SBR. They said that you do not have to purchase the $200 tax stamp, but you essentially will be required to file this as a short-barreled rifle. What's interesting about this and why you need to care is whether or not you own a short-barreled rifle or a braced pistol or even necessarily care about any of those things. What we have is the ATF legislating by executive fiat. Now, this is a law enforcement agency and they're changing rules, and their rule changes are criminalizing law-abiding citizens overnight. Even if you just hate guns and you are for much of this gun control, we all have to agree that ends cannot justify the means. As a constitutional republic, we have elected officials who are supposed to enact the will of the people. And if we don't speak up and say something, these law enforcement agencies are just going to have more power, and one day they're going to come after you. Something that brings me comfort is that many of our legislators are genuinely ignorant to this. I meet with legislators regularly from a state level all the way up to a federal level, and many just simply aren't that well versed in firearm law or understand the nuances of firearms in general. So here's what you can do. You can call your local representatives and you can call your congresspeople. You can call those in the House and you can call your senators and inform them. Don't just write a piece asking them to change this or not support these certain things. But what you can do is in that email, in that phone call, take some time to outline what this is, what this means, and why this isn't the way to go about things. Please stay involved. Your voice absolutely matters. If you learned something from this video, please hit like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.